Joan.
I want to ask the Minister for Finance if he believes that Ireland will have to increase its contributions very significantly to the EU multiannual funding budget due in 2021. Suggestions have been made that Ireland will have to pay up to 760 million a year more on average into the EU budget, and the suggestion has been made that our net contributions will go up as far as 0.91% of GNI. This obviously is complicated by Brexit. However, the actual cost of this could be close to the cost of a difficult Brexit deal.
Minister.
For raising this matter. The multi-annual financial framework was most recently discussed at the October European Council, where leaders exchanged views on key issues such as the overall level of expenditure, the volumes of expenditure in the main policy area, the financing, including revenues and corrections, as well as the conditionalities and incentives. In light of this discussion, it is called on the Presidency to submit a negotiation box with figures ahead of the European Council in December 2019. The discussions largely reiterated between Member States the differences between them. There was no narrowing of views on the overall level of expenditure, with a number of net contributors reiterating the need to keep the overall level at 1% of European Union gross national income. While there was strong pushback from the net recipients on the Presidency proposals, which they considered too low, they argue for an overall level of 1.1% of EU gross national income. On the allocation of volumes between areas, net recipients expressed strong dissatisfaction regarding proposals on CAP and cohesion, which they see as requiring further cuts to the Commission's proposals for cohesion in particular. The issue of rebates also highlighted different positions, with some net contributors stating the need for a correction mechanism as their contributions rise, with others in favour of their phasing out. The Taoiseach has noted that while Ireland's contribution is likely to increase significantly, we need to talk about the benefits and not just the costs of EU membership, including access to the single market, which vastly outweighs the EU budget contributions. In relation to the contributions to the EU budget, Ireland is likely to see significant growth in our contributions as a result of continued economic growth. For example, under a 1.1% GNI star ceiling, the average annual contribution would be €3.3 billion, and I can go through, Deputy, the different cost consequences if it is below 1.1%.
The remainder will be included in the official report. Deputy.
Thank you, Minister. So you are agreeing that it's a very significant issue. I think the vast majority of people in Ireland welcome and recognise the benefit to Ireland of being a member of the EU. But with the likelihood of Great Britain leaving the European Union and with the changes that are being made anyway in the multiannual financial funding programme, I think, Minister, it is important that you would tell the House here and tell people in Ireland what the parameters of this discussion are. As recently as 2017, the contribution by Ireland to the EU budget was 173 million. Last year, it went up to 315 million. And my understanding, and you haven't denied it, is that for 2021, it's likely to increase by something in the region of 760 million. In other words, roughly £750 million. Now, we all appreciate that that is a very significant imposition and burden on future Irish budgets. So what I want to know, Minister, is are you going to broaden the tax base to ensure that it's not ordinary workers who will be paying the bulk of this, but that, for instance,
Please,
you will
Minister,
have changed your view on bank taxation?
Minister.
But it's ordinary workers who benefit from our membership of the European Union. You asked me a question regarding what are the cost consequences of the different scenarios that are being articulated by other member states, and I began to outline that to you, and the rest of the information would be given to you in written format. If, for example, the ceiling is at 1%, from 2021 that figure would be at €2.575 billion, rising to 2023 a figure of €2.77 billion. If I look at where we are, if it is beyond 1%, then the contributions are higher. Ireland has not at this point, nor am I going to do it now, outlined what our preferred figure is, because this is a negotiation that I anticipate is going to continue for quite some while. But I, on many occasions, have made clear what the government's priorities in all of this, which are continuing to support our farmers and our agricultural community through the CAP system and making sure the right funding is in place for this. Secondly, how we can support research and innovation. And then thirdly, the programmes that are very, very important to our island. But it is our ordinary workers who benefit from membership of the Union, who benefit from access to the single market, even on a no policy change basis, even if the current way of calculating payments was not to change. To conclude with this very quickly, because our income is growing, it means that the commitment that we have will grow too.
We have to.
You mentioned there the significance and importance of the agricultural budget and of the CAP. Minister, the proposals, as you know, are to green the CAP. And will the Irish government actually agree with that, that our farmers will actually have to adapt to more green-friendly agricultural policies, including looking at carbon emissions and looking at ways to decarbonise the agricultural economy. Now again, we all realise how important agriculture is to Ireland, but what I'm saying to you, Minister, these changes are coming down the road. We won't particularly have a choice about them. So can you say what planning is the government doing for this? The government has been talking about forestry, but we haven't seen any actual plans. In fact, remarkably, in your own budget speech, I never heard the word tree or forest anywhere. There was stuff in the back of some of the budget books, but you never even mentioned it.
Minister,
and yet this is incredibly important in terms of the future, both of Irish farming, but the overall future of the Irish budget.
Minister, we're not making progress today. It's just been a Minister. 1 minute.
Thank you. The Deputy used the figure Burton regarding our contribution that we would need to make to the European Union. And it is the case that what we would face is a higher level of payment that we would need to make in. But of course, this is all against the context of the fact that Ireland has only recently become a net contributor. So for decades, we were a net beneficiary. That has now changed. We are now paying in more than we receive back. And as we look at how we're going to frame our negotiations, it's so critical that we are reaffirming how important it is to be in the single market. Now that our income has grown, the fact that that of itself means we're going to have to make a higher contribution. And the Deputy asked me the question in relation to where we are with the likely change in the Common Agricultural Policy. Minister Creed is involved in a huge amount of work in this. He's involved in a coalition of like-minded agriculture ministers to ensure that we can progress our own priorities in terms of the scale of CAP and where it will go. And of course, we want to find ways of ensuring that the Common Agricultural Policy continues to be environmentally sustainable while meeting the needs of Irish farmers and agriculture.
We're going to move on to other questions.